You're watching TVC Breakfast. That Nigeria aims to achieve positive results in different sectors this year.
But some factors could hinder this goal. One of such is cybercrime. For years, cybercrime placed a big dent on the reputation of Nigeria and its citizens.
Now, last year, about 80 Nigerians were arrested in one of the biggest online scam busts of all time. This further put Nigeria in a compromising position at the international community.
This gave rise to a clampdown on cyber fraud and a collaboration between the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission and the Federal Bureau of Investigation of the United States. In spite of this, the number of cybercrimes continues to increase, perhaps due to the perceived lucrativeness of internet fraud and abuse of technology.
With all of these, Nigeria must in this year zoom its looking lens into the activities of criminals to halt all form of developmental sabotage. It must also be willing to invest more in cybersecurity. All right, joining us via Skype from South Africa is IT expert and cybercrime specialist, Dr. Olalekan Samuel. It's good to have you join us right now, Dr. Olalekan. Now, when it comes to when it comes to the issues of cybercrime, it's very popular with Nigeria, especially when the name 419 is mentioned. I wonder what you make, sitting in South Africa and looking as a Nigerian, looking at comparing Nigeria with other countries of the world, how much of a damage is this doing to Nigeria?
Good morning, and thank you for having me once again. It's absolutely heartbreaking to see what this has actually caused, the damage that this has caused to the reputation of Nigeria. I'm at the receiving end. So whenever you are at a function, you talk, people say, "Oh, you are very, very brilliant. Where are you from?" The moment you say you're from Nigeria, you just see them going cold. You ask them what's going on. They say whenever they hear the name Nigeria, it's synonymous to actually crime. And that is basically cybercrime. So it's actually damaging to our reputation outside the country.
Seeing how damaging it has been as an individual and even as a country, where do we begin to change the narrative of this kind of story?
I think the buck stops at the doorsteps of both public and private sector. The government needs to buckle up their shoes when it comes to attacking the scourge of cybersecurity in the country. For instance, I don't think that Nigeria personally has actually adopted what we call the Budapest Convention on Cybercrime. The principle of the Budapest Convention on Cybercrime. If you ask any public sector, the Nigerian National Communication or the expert, the IT expert in most of our private sectors, they actually don't understand the meaning of that Budapest Convention on Cybercrime. And this is basically the convention that almost all the developed world, all the countries of the West, that they are actually using in order to tackle cybersecurity.
All right, now when it comes to harnessing all of this, changing the narrative, a lot of people have said that these people who have been very successful, I have to put it in parentheses, in cybercrime, where they have hacked into a lot of systems outside this country, duped a lot of people in some instances, can be brought back home and transformed into a positive agenda for the country. What do you say of that?
To some extent, it's actually true, but the fact that you know how to break a house does not mean that you know how to build it. There are two separate processes involved in building a house and in breaking the house. So these guys may know how to, there's what you call ethical hacking. Most of these guys that eventually turn into cybersecurity criminals, they started from learning how to hack ethically. Some of them might have read it personally. It might have been self-study, or some of them have actually studied something like that. If you understand what I mean, maybe outside the country. they might have studied anything, something that relates to cybersecurity, in which ethical hacking is part of it. Ethical hacking are basically people who are authorized to hack or break into other people's systems. These people, they usually work with the government, and they always obtain court order in order to break into another system if they realize that there's a threat. Some of these people may move out of that profession and become a cyber criminal. So that the fact that they are there, bringing them home, does not necessarily mean that they will understand what is going on. However, they will understand how to tackle the scourge. However, we cannot rule out the fact that they could be useful in combating such crime.
You mentioned that we haven't adopted the Budapest Convention. Are you saying
Yes.
that this obviously shows that we are not ready or committed to fighting the scourge?
Can you come again, please?
You said we haven't adopted the Budapest Convention. Are you saying that the government is not yet committed to fighting this scourge? Dr. Olalekan, can you hear me?
Your line is breaking. I cannot hear you again.
All right.
All right, but maybe let's ask again for the last time if you can hear. My colleague Veronica is asking if you feel that government is committed, because you mentioned the Budapest Convention earlier on cybercrime. How committed is government to
Yes.
this?
So basically, that convention is a kind of a treaty that seeks to address the internet and computer crime. And basically what this means is that there's a need for improving investigative techniques. That's number one. And also, there's a need to improve cooperation among nations in order for us to fight the crime. And when we're talking about investigative techniques, you realize that basically none of our higher institutions in Nigeria, no single of our higher institutions in Nigeria has any research center that is dedicated to cybersecurity. How are we then going to be able to cooperate or to dedicate ourselves in order to cooperate with other nations? However, we see government officials who also do not have adequate knowledge of what cybersecurity is, going into cooperation with other nations who have more understanding of what cybersecurity is. So with this, there's no synchronization between our research institutions or higher institutions, which I think that is where government needs to start from.
All right. Dr. Olalekan Samuel, thank you very much for talking to us on this, reaching us from South Africa.